हर प्राणी में साई, हर प्राणी में बाबा, सब प्रेम करो, सब प्रेम करो, मेरा साई प्रसन्न होगा, मेरा साई प्रसन्न होगा, मेरा साई प्रसन्न होगा।
ప్రేమ స్వరూపులారా,
సాయిని సంతోషపెట్టేటువంటివి సేవలే, సాయి చేసేటువంటిది కూడాను సేవలే, సాయి చెప్పేటువంటిది కూడాను సేవలే. ఈ విధమైనటువంటి యొక్క ఉత్తమ భావములతో, విశాలమైన హృదయములతో సమాజంలో ప్రవేశించి సేవలు సలపండి. అదే సాయికి సంతృప్తికరమిచ్చేటువంటిది.
दिन दुखियों से प्रेम करो, मेरा साई प्रसन्न होगा, दिन दुखियों से प्रेम करो, मेरा साई प्रसन्न होगा। साई मेरा मैं तेरा, ये प्रेम की बहती धारा, साई मेरा मैं तेरा, ये प्रेम की बहती धारा, ये प्रेम की बहती धारा।
Offering my most humble pranams at the divine lotus feet of my Lord, Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Loving Sai Rams, aunties, uncles, brothers and sisters. My name is Nilayam and I will be facilitating tonight's panel discussion. Before starting, I would like to acknowledge the Ngunnawal people, the traditional custodians on the land where I meet you all today, and extend that same respect to the people on whose lands we all meet. I would like to also pay my respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, past, present and emerging. Sai Ram again and welcome to our 96 days of devotional offering for our beloved Bhagavan's 96th year of Advent. In a divine discourse delivered on the 22nd of September 1968, Swami said, Seva or selfless service is the adoration of the Lord as Vishwa Virat Swarupa, God with multifaceted form, with immanence in the entire cosmos. The Vedas described him as 1,000-headed, 1,000-eyed, 1,000-footed. The thousands of hands and eyes and feet are all his, the Lord's. Worship him. That is the purpose of your seva. And he is none other than your own self. Do not count an individual as just an individual, the individual has God within him or within her as the reality. Be aware of that. In adhering to these instructions of Swami, we offer tonight's panel discussion at his divine lotus feet. Our discussion tonight will attempt to further understand how we can overcome the major obstacles that stand in the way of our selfless service. That is our ego and attachment, and the feeling of doership and enjoyership. I would now like to introduce the panelists for tonight's discussion. First, we have Brother Ranganathan Arumagan, Regional President of Queensland. We have Brother Shazabin Sridharan, the Regional Service Coordinator from Victoria, Region East. We have Auntie Janine Berrells, the Regional Ladies Wing Coordinator for South Australia.
Sairam.
And finally, we have Brother Kailesh Ravindran from Sai Centre of Blacktown, New South Wales, Region West and ACT. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for being here with us today. In all of our experiences, and what you have come to understand about Swami and his teachings on selfless service, the first question that we'd like to pose to you all tonight is, how is selfless service a spiritual discipline? And perhaps a follow-up question, what do you understand by the statement, service is by God, to God, and for God? Auntie Janine, I'd love to start with you.
As Sai people, we can often feel a little bit on the outer and mainstream, but through service, I think we greatly have proven what we are all about, and that's, of course, love. And actually, for the occasion, I was hoping to tell you a quick story about a medical camp in Fiji, where we were in a very outer area providing service for the local people. And what happened was that a week before, unbeknownst to us, an American service ship had also been. And one of the local people reiterated a story that I thought was so telling. They said that they had been having scans and new glasses and all the things that we provide from the American people, but they were sitting in the sun without water. And they said, when you Sai people came, you looked after us, you put us in the shade, you asked if we wanted water, you smiled at us, and we felt loved by you. I thought that was very telling. So in that sense, I think when we do spiritual work on internally or on others, we feel an upliftment within ourselves, a joy. And the service is as much for ourselves as for the other, I think. And the diversity in human suffering is another part of it. As we give service to others, we become identified with maybe the struggle or the suffering of the other people, and it might prepare us or it might humble us into feeling that sameness. Saying unity and diversity is very apt here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Auntie. And with that, I'd now like to pass on to Uncle Ranganathan from Region Queensland.
Sairam, once again, thank you. How is selfless service a spiritual discipline? Selfless service can be identified by means of two basic characteristics, which are compassion and willingness to sacrifice. Service done without ego becomes yoga and will lead to union with God. In selfless service, there is a recognition of oneness between the one serving and the one being served. This leads us to realize that truth, that the God in us is serving the God in others. The service should be done with love and humility. Prayer leads us to God Almighty, from where we can get the faith and love. Only then we will be able to provide the selfless service. I would like to quote Mother Teresa here. She used to call a business card, which she used to give it to those who come to see her. The card reads, "The fruit of faith is prayer. The fruit of prayer is love. And the fruit of love is service." Selfless service is the universal tool for understanding, experiencing, and expressing the divine principle of love. Service is love in action, service is prayer in action, and the action is communion with God. Let's see the inner meaning of service is by God, to God, and for God. Everyone in our Sai family is familiar with the quote, love all, serve all. What does it mean? When we render service, we should feel that we are serving God. That's why Swami says, service to man is service to God. Manava Seva, Madhava Seva. Man starts his spiritual life with an objective to see the external God. When he matures, he tries to see the God as the indweller. As he progresses in his spiritual path, he sees God as all-pervading or omnipresent. At that stage, he sees God in man. That's when the service to man becomes service to God. The person who is serving, the recipient of the service, and the process of serving are all one and are all divine. The individual soul is connected with the universal soul only by means of service. Service done in this manner makes us to realize that service is done by God, to God, and for God. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Uncle. That really was such a wonderful reflection. I'd now like to pass on to Brother Shazabin in Victoria Region East.
Hi, brother. Thank you for this question. So when I think of selfless service, I feel that these are acts carried out without hoping or expecting for it to be recognized or validated. Therefore, you don't have any attachment to the outcome, and it's just performed from a purer form of love. The more you practice selfless service via thoughts, words, deeds, less it becomes about serving the I and gratifying the ego. This is definitely one of the foundation blocks of spiritual discipline. To answer your second question, I believe that separation is just an illusion, and that everything that we see with our eyes and that's in existence is spark of the divine. It's manifested in various different forms on this earthly plane. Everything's connected to one another by this divine thread. So at the core, we're truly divine. That's our true nature. Therefore, literally everyone and everything is God, and whatever we do can only be to, by, and for God. And that's my understanding of this statement. Thank you.
Thanks so much, brother. That was really nice. And finally, I might move on to Brother Kailesh, if you'd like to put your perspective forward for all of us.
Sure, thanks, bro. So it's an interesting question in terms of spiritual discipline from a service perspective. So, because often one of the first things I think of when I think of spiritual discipline is something like meditation or namasmarana, for example. Often service isn't the first thing that comes to mind. But thinking about this a little bit more, you look at the purpose of spiritual discipline. One of the purposes, you could say, is to increase that awareness of the reality that my true self is no different from you and from everyone else, and that there is essentially no distinction between us. So selfless service is quite an effective way to meet this purpose, because if we continuously seek opportunities to serve selflessly, we increase our empathy for others, and eventually realize that there is no difference between us and the people that we are serving. So once we do get to this realization that there is no distinction between us and the people that we are serving, then essentially service does become by God, to God, and for God.
Thanks so much, brother. Thank you. And thank you all for answering that first question. I hope everyone out there really got a different perspective on just the importance of selfless service as a spiritual discipline, but also how, with that intention of doing everything for God, and ultimately it's nothing but service by God. So thank you all so much. Now, with regards to service, one should discriminate between the pure and that which is influenced by passion. Swami explains that the urge to serve arises from a compassionate heart in response to seeing someone in distress. Service is sattvic, or pure, when it is offered purely for the happiness of others and without self-interest or preconditions. Swami tells us that social service is not the only way to practice selfless service. We can also serve God by cultivating pure thoughts, by speaking softly and sweetly, and by offering our actions to God, thus reducing our desires and conserving natural resources with a sense of sacrifice is also a form of service. So my next question to all the panelists is, how does the mind affect the quality of service? Brother Shazabin, let's start with you.
Sairam. So the mind greatly affects our service. When the mind feels it's here to serve the ego and the ego only, you still can carry out server, but it's from a really uninspired place. In my personal experience, I've noticed that the quality of my mind state affects and reflects the quality of my server. For example, we have a soup kitchen here in Melbourne each week for the homeless, and I've noticed when I'm having a really stressful day or bad day or a week, and I attend the service activity, I feel really uninspired, and I can even feel disconnected to the people around me. So maybe my ability to empathize might reduce, or my level of patience may not be where I want it to be, or I might even have judgmental thoughts floating around. But what I've noticed is when I'm in a calm mind state, I'm more connected to my heart. So I feel more energized and I radiate unconditional love to everyone around me. That energy carries and transmits and lifts everyone up, and they might not even realize why they feel elevated. So when we're serving the food, it's not only the food that we're serving, but love in the form of compassion. That food will probably nourish their body, but the unconditional love that you give with them, it will stay in their subconscious and ignite the God within them at some point. It might not be today, it might not be next month, or even that year, but it will at some time unravel itself. That's why I think it's really important for us to keep ourselves in like a healthy and calm mind state. Saram.
Saram, brother. Thank you so much. Brother Kailesh, what about you? What's your perspective on this wonderful question?
Sure. Yeah, I think the mind definitely does have an effect on the overall quality of the service. So when thinking about or when evaluating the quality of a service activity, typically it can be fairly tempting to desire a particular outcome or be attached to the results of that service project. And while this might be effective in the short term, it's very hard to sustain that mindset in the long term, because the desire for that outcome or the attachment to the results, it can wane over time. So in other words, once that short-term goal is reached, there is risk that the service activity comes to a halt. So that's typically probably not the right mindset to go into if you want to impact the overall quality of a service. And just thinking from my own observations in some of the most successful or quite good quality service projects I've come across are those ones that are fairly simple but have been run effectively and continuously over a long period of time. One example that comes to mind is Soup Kitchen, similar to what Brother Shaz was saying, as well as something that many centres and groups around Australia have participated in for quite a long time, and it's fairly simple to run, but because they've had that mindset of doing something effectively and continuously for a long period of time, ultimately that ensures a better quality in the end.
Thank you so much, Kailesh. It's so true, just that influence the mind can really have on us when we have that good intention. Thank you so much. Uncle Ranganathan in Queensland, we might jump over to you for your perspective on this question.
Okay, thank you. The mind, according to scriptures, is the cause of a person's bondage or liberation. The mind has got three qualities: sloth and inaction, which is tamas, passion, which is rajas, and pure, which is sattva. The sloth and inaction makes the mind to ignore the truth, pursue the false, and impulse a person to indulge in what is unholy and improper. They are overcome by the darkness of ignorance. So they don't know what is right and what is wrong. it is necessary to correct this tendency of the tamoguna. The passion, rajoguna, is responsible for a person living in a kind of a dream state and treating it as real. Those who with a rajoguna will be engaged in acts tarnished with a tinge of ego. They may have the urge to do the service to others, but that urge will drive them on to win, name and fame, and take pride in their achievements. The pure quality, which is a sattvic one, makes a person to see good even in bad person or object. The sattvic person sees God in the whole cosmos and fosters the godly approach to creation. Sattva guna is steady, pure, unselfish, and light. So those who have these characteristics will have no wish or want. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Uncle, and thank you so much for taking us through those different states that our mind can go through and the importance of having that steady mind and still mind. Thank you, Uncle. I'd now like to pass on to Auntie Janine in South Australia for her perspective.
I think if we, for example, when we do service, I try as much as possible to calm the mind and to have a pure mind and to maybe set aside judgment or maybe even a sense of moreness of the other person. So having that calm, pure mind gets us in touch and anchors us in that feeling of love. And the love for the other is, of course, the purpose of the service. And stilling the mind through service, I think, is another almost a side effect, because when we do service, we kind of lose ourselves in the activity. And that activity and that love for the other is, of course, a quality of the mind that's very important for us as a spiritual aspirant. Thank you.
Sairam, and thank you so much, everyone, for your incredible answers. I'm sure everyone out there would really agree that that importance of the intention with which we do everything is so important when it comes to our service, because what truly makes it selfless is the moment that we really remove ourselves, that ego self, from the action. So thank you all so much. And before we wrap up, it is only up for us to end with our Divine Master's words. Taken from a discourse given on November 20th, 2000, Swami said, "The human being is born to render selfless service and not to indulge in selfishness. Selfless service alone can achieve unity of humankind. Only through unity can humanity attain divinity. Hence, service is very essential to understand this unity in humanity. People are under the impression that service means merely to help the poor, the weak, and forlorn. It is a big mistake to think that you are rendering service to others. In fact, you are serving yourself, because the same principle of the Atma, the same principle of love, is present in all. All human beings are essentially one. The differences lie only in their feelings. So, a person should change his or her feelings and try to recognize the truth that the same divinity is immanent in all. Only then can there be transformation in the human. Once again, thank you so much to all of our panelists for being here with us tonight and for taking the time to answer these really fundamental questions that do continually come up within all of us. As we leave tonight, we leave with a few reflections and an update on some of the service activities that have happened across the country. And we will then lead into bhajans, Swami discourse, and finally Arati and prayers. Thank you so much, aunties and uncles, brothers and sisters, for giving us this opportunity. And we pray that Swami blesses you all with an abundance of love. Om Shri Sai Ram.
तुम हो विघ्न विनाश गणेशा,
विघ्न विनाश गणेशा,
तुम हो 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 विघ्न विनाश गणेशा,
विघ्न विनाश गणेशा,
पार्वती नंदन पाहि गजानना,
पार्वती नंदन पाहि गजानना,
पार्वती नंदन पाहि गजानना,
पार्वती नंदन पाहि गजानना,
प्रणव स्वरूपा पर्तिपुरीशा,
प्रणव स्वरूपा पर्तिपुरीशा,
प्रणव स्वरूपा पर्तिपुरीशा,
प्रणव स्वरूपा पर्तिपुरीशा,
पाहि गणेशा विघ्न विनाशा,
पाहि गणेशा विघ्न विनाशा,
पाहि गणेशा विघ्न विनाशा,
पाहि गणेशा विघ्न विनाशा,
तुम हो विघ्न विनाश गणेशा,
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 विघ्न विनाश गणेशा,
पार्वती नंदन पाहि गजानना,
पार्वती नंदन पाहि गजानना,
प्रणव स्वरूपा पर्तिपुरीशा,
प्रणव स्वरूपा पर्तिपुरीशा,
पाहि गणेशा विघ्न विनाशा,
पाहि गणेशा विघ्न विनाशा,
पाहि गणेशा विघ्न विनाशा,
पाहि गणेशा विघ्न विनाशा,
तुम हो विघ्न विनाश गणेशा, नंद किशोरा नारायणा,
नंद किशोरा नारायणा,
नंद किशोरा नारायणा,
नंद किशोरा नारायणा,
नवनीत चोरा नारायणा,
नवनीत चोरा नारायणा,
नवनीत चोरा नारायणा,
नवनीत चोरा नारायणा,
नंद किशोरा नारायणा,
नंद किशोरा नारायणा,
नरहरि रूपा नारायणा,
नरहरि रूपा नारायणा,
नरहरि रूपा नारायणा,
नरहरि रूपा नारायणा,
नादस्वरूपा नारायणा,
नादस्वरूपा
नवनीत चोरा नारायण नंद किशोरा नारायण नरहरि रूप नारायण नाद स्वरूप नारायण नाद स्वरूप नारायण नंद किशोरा नारायण
हरिनारायण 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 साई नारायण हरिनारायण साई नारायण हरिनारायण 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 जय हरिनारायण नारायण जय साई नारायण नारायण हरिनारायण 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 साई नारायण हरिनारायण हरिनारायण जय हरिनारायण नारायण जय साई नारायण नारायण हरिनारायण हरिनारायण प्रणव स्वरूपा हरि ओम साई 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 नारायण हरि ओम नारायण हरि ओम नारायण हरि ओम नारायण हरि ओम सत्य साईश्वराय हरि ओम सत्य साईश्वराय हरि ओम सत्य साईश्वराय हरि ओम सत्य साईश्वराय हरि ओम यादवाय माधवाय गोविन्दाय नमः यादवाय माधवाय गोविन्दाय नमः यादवाय माधवाय साईश्वराय हरि ओम।
सत्य साईश्वराय हरि
प्रणव स्वरूपा हरि ओम साई।
प्रणव स्वरूपा हरि ओम साई।
नारायण हरि ओम।
नारायण हरि ओम।
सत्य साईश्वराय हरि ओम।
सत्य साईश्वराय हरि ओम।
यादवाय माधवाय गोविन्दाय नमः।
यादवाय माधवाय गोविन्दाय नमः।
परमात्मा रूपाय हरि ओम।
परमात्मा रूपाय हरि ओम।
हरि ओम हरि ओम।
हरि ओम हरि ओम।
सत्य साईश्वराय हरि ओम।
सत्य साईश्वराय हरि ओम।
सत्य साईश्वराय हरि ओम।
सत्य साईश्वराय हरि ओम।
प्रणव स्वरूपा हरि ओम साई। साई नारायण नारायण।
नारायण नारायण।
साई नारायण नारायण।
नारायण नारायण।
सत्य नारायण नारायण।
नारायण नारायण।
सत्य नारायण नारायण।
नारायण नारायण।
गानलोल प्रभु नारायण।
लोल प्रभु नारायण।
गानलोल प्रभु नारायण।
लोल प्रभु नारायण।
दीनपाल जय नारायण।
दीनपाल जय नारायण।
प्रभु दीनपाल जय नारायण।
दीनपाल जय नारायण।
साई नारायण नारायण।
साई नारायण नारायण।
सत्य नारायण नारायण।
सत्य नारायण नारायण।
गानलोल प्रभु नारायण।
लोल प्रभु नारायण।
दीनपाल जय नारायण।
दीनपाल जय नारायण।
प्रभु दीनपाल जय नारायण।
दीनपाल जय नारायण।
साई नारायण नारायण। विठ्ठला नारायण।
विठ्ठला नारायण।
विठ्ठला नारायण।
विठ्ठला नारायण।
नारायण हरि नारायण।
नारायण हरि नारायण।
नारायण हरि नारायण।
नारायण हरि नारायण।
विठ्ठला नारायण।
नारायण।
मधुसूदना नारायण।
मधुसूदना नारायण।
మధుసూదనా నారాయణ
మధుసూదనా నారాయణ
హే శేషశయనా నారాయణ
హే శేషశయనా నారాయణ
హే శేషశయనా నారాయణ
శేషశయనా నారాయణ
నారాయణ హరి నారాయణ
నారాయణ హరి నారాయణ
నారాయణ హరి నారాయణ
నారాయణ హరి నారాయణ
నారాయణ సాయి నారాయణ
నారాయణ సాయి నారాయణ
నారాయణ సాయి నారాయణ విఠల నారాయణ నారాయణ హరి నారాయణ విఠల నారాయణ మధుసూదనా నారాయణ హే శేషశయనా నారాయణ నారాయణ హరి నారాయణ నారాయణ సాయి నారాయణ నారాయణ సాయి నారాయణ విఠల విఠల పాండురంగ విఠల 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 పాండురంగ విఠల 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 పర్తిరంగ విఠల 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 పర్తిరంగ విఠల 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 సాయి రంగ విఠల 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 సాయి రంగ విఠల 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 పాండురంగ విఠల 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 పాండురంగ విఠల 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 పర్తిరంగ విఠల 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 సాయి రంగ విఠల 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 సాయి రంగ విఠల విఠల నారాయణ
నీ సేవ నీ భవిష్యత్తుకు ఒక ఉత్తమమైనటువంటి స్థితిని అందిస్తుంది. నేను సేవ చేస్తున్నాను అనేటువంటి అహంకారంతో కాకుండా భగవంతుడు నాకు ఇట్టి పవిత్రమైనటువంటి సేవాభావంను సేవాకర్మను నాకు అనుగ్రహించాడని ఆనందంతో నీవు సేవ చేయటానికి పూనుకో. ఏది చేసినప్పటికీ తనకు తాను చేసుకున్నట్టుగా భావించుకొని సేవ లోపల మనం పూనుకోవాలి. ఒక చిన్న ఉదాహరణము, నీ ఇంటికి ఎవరైనా ఒక మిత్రుడు వచ్చాడు. ఆ మిత్రుడు వచ్చిన తక్షణమే హలో కమాన్ కమాన్ అని చెప్పి నేను డ్రాయింగ్ రూమ్ లోకి తీసుకెళ్లి కూర్చోబెట్టి ఒక కప్ కాఫీ ఇచ్చేసేసినావు. కానీ ఈ దృశ్యము ఆ వచ్చినటువంటి మిత్రుని యొక్క చిత్తము లోపల హత్తుకొని పోతుంది. తదుపరి నీవు అతని గృహమునికి ఎప్పుడైనా వెళ్ళినప్పుడు అతను కూడా నువ్వు కమాన్ కమాన్ అని పిలిచేసేస్తాడు. తిరిగి ఆ కప్ కాఫీ నీకు ఇస్తాడు. కనుక ఈనాడు నీవు ఇచ్చినటువంటి కాఫీ నీవు హెల్ప్ కోసం కాదు, భవిష్యత్తులో నీకు రిటర్న్ అవుతుంది. అట్లు కాకుండా ఎవరైనా ఒక మిత్రుడు ఏ విధమైనటువంటి ఆధారము లేకుండా ఎవరి సహాయము లేనటువంటి స్థితి లోపల హాస్పిటల్ లోపల ప్రవేశించాడనుకో, అప్పుడు నీవు వెళ్ళి అతనికి అనేక రకములైనటువంటి సేవలే నీవు చేసినావంటే ఏనాడైనా కూడాను మనకు అట్టి పరిస్థితి ఏర్పడినప్పుడు తిరిగి ఆ మిత్రుడు వచ్చి తప్పక నీకు ఆ యొక్క సేవను అందిస్తుంటాడు. కనుక ఈనాడు చేసినటువంటి సేవ మన నిమిత్తమై భవిష్యత్తులో మనం భద్రం చేసుకున్నామే కానీ పరులకు చేశాము మనం సేవ అనేటువంటి యొక్క ప్రతిఫల నిమిత్తమై మనం ఏమాత్రం కూడా ఆశించరాదు. కనుక మనం ఏమి చేసినా, మంచి చేసినా చెడ్డ చేసినా తనకు తాను చేసుకున్నట్టుగా భావించుకున్నప్పుడు తాను చెడ్డ చేయడానికి ఏమాత్రం కూడా పూనుకోడు.
ओम जय जगदीश हरे स्वामी सत्य साई हरे भक्त जना संरक्षक भक्त जना संरक्षक हरि महेश्वरा ओम जय जगदीश हरे शशिवदना श्रीकरा सर्वा प्राणपते स्वामी सर्वा प्राणपते आश्रित कल्वलदीका आश्रित कल्वलदीका आपद्बान्धवा ओम जय जगदीश हरे मात पिता गुरुदैवमु मरियन्तयु नीवे स्वामी मरियन्तयु नीवे नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नागेन्द्राशयन ओम जय जगदीश हरे ओंकार रूप ओजस्वी साई महादेवा सत्य साई महादेवा मंगलारति अंदो मंगलारति अंदो मंदर गिरिधारी ओम जय जगदीश हरे नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा ओम शांति 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 समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु शांति 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 जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय।
Sairam all. Just a reminder, we are now live on YouTube and Facebook. You can search on YouTube for Sai Organisation of Australia. Please subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to receive updates and reminders of our upcoming inspirational programs. On Facebook, please search for SAI Organisation of Australia and like and follow our account. Please visit our website on sai.org.au to keep updated with upcoming programs in the 96 Days devotional offerings, news of our service activities, and inspirational updates.